Hi everyone, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Bookmas Day 3. So today's video is going to be all about the books that I DNF'd, and then I also have a few at the end that I did finish, but they were really disappointing and I should have DNF'd them. Before I get into all of these books, I just want to say that I personally didn't like them, so that's why I DNF'd them. That is not to say that you won't enjoy them or that they're bad books. I just didn't like them, and I do not have time to waste on books that I am not enjoying. I read for fun, and if I'm not having fun, then I am DNFing that book, okay? I am a huge advocate of DNFing because I think it is a form of self-care. Like, reading is a fun hobby for me. I am not reading for a job or for a grade or anything like that. I am reading to have fun. It is my form of enjoyment and it's my hobby that I want to, have a good time with. It's what makes me happy. And if a book is not making me happy or it's not fun or I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to finish it. So first, let's talk about all of the books that I did not like so much that I decided to not finish them at all. The first one was The Haunting of Bryn by Wendy Webb. This was the group pick for Winter Ween, which is a readathon hosted by Gabby from Gabby Reads and Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte. And, I watched the live show before I finished it, and they just, tore the book apart. I was already struggling with finishing this book. It was not for me. And then watching the live show and seeing everybody else have the same issues, I just decided to DNF it. So I was, totally fine if they spoiled me for it. And they did. They talked about spoilers, and I was like, yeah, I'm really glad that I'm deciding not to finish that because that book was not for me. It just, it couldn't really decide what it wanted to be, if it wanted to be a horror book or if it wanted to be a romance, and it just did not work for me. It was not for me. So I DNF'd that one, and I'm really glad that I did because after watching the live show, I just would not want to read what happened next. The next book that I DNF'd, I actually still have my copy of. First of all, because it's really, really pretty, and I am superficial like that, I guess. But also because I think I want to try to give this book a second chance at some point. Whenever I'm really in the mood for it and this is the book I want to pick up, I think I want to give it a second chance, but at the time of reading it, I just was so bored and couldn't finish it. And that is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. Like I said, this is a very pretty book. It's a book about witches, and it's historical fiction, which I don't typically go for, but it's witches, so I make the exception. And it's set right around the time of women's suffrage, which I find really interesting. And so it's supposed to be a super feminist witchy book, which sounds exactly like something I would love, but I can't remember how far I got into it. I want to say 150 pages or so, and not much, if anything, had really happened. We got introduced to the characters, and then one event happened, and it wasn't even that good of an event, so I was pretty bored by this. But I think it was just the wrong time for me to read this. I wanted something fast-paced, and this is just not. So I did DNF this, but this is probably one of the only ones. Yeah, looking at this list, this is the only one that I would consider picking up again in the future to give a second chance to. All these other ones I DNF'd and I am not giving them a second chance, but this one I think I would. Then this one is a DNF and a very disappointing read for me, and that is A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. I had such high hopes for this book. I loved the cover and I loved the premise, but it was not good in my opinion. It was really whiny. One of the main characters who's supposed to be this 300-year-old badass was super whiny and juvenile and immature, and I just hated being in her point of view. And this is another one that I think I got over 100 pages in. Let me actually check. I have it written down. I don't know why I don't have this available to look at. Okay, I got 90 pages into A Dark and Hollow Star, and yeah, I was getting so annoyed with the characters, and every time I would pick that book up, I would have this ew feeling, I don't want to be reading this, and that is just not a vibe that I'm going for. I have a ton of books that I want to read, and I'm just not going to be wasting my time on books that I am not excited to pick back up. The fact that even now, thinking about that book, I have this feeling of annoyance. Okay, why would I want to read that then? Why would I try to finish that? So yeah, I DNF'd that one, and I will not be giving it a second chance. It's just not for me. the next book that I DNF'd this year was The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. I had really high hopes for this one because it had been compared to Sarah J. Maas books, and I just don't think that that is a good comparison. I think that this book was really boring, and I did not like the main character, and I just really didn't care to see like what would happen. And I got pretty far into this book. I think I was over halfway. I got 184 pages into this book, and like, that's pretty far. Like, if I can give a book nearly 200 pages and still not care what's going on and what's going to happen, like, then I really need to DNF it, because I did not care at all what was going to happen to the characters. Like, anybody could have died and I would have been like, okay. Like, I just was not connected at all, and I just really didn't care. So I DNF'd that one. Then the next book that I DNF'd was Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is a Greek mythology retelling of the princess of Crete, who is like sister she's the sister of the Minotaur. And this was another one where it was just too slow for me. Like, I like Greek retellings, like Greek mythology retellings, but this one I don't know, I just didn't care for, and I just wasn't in the mood for it. And it was really slow. I think I only got like 75 or so pages into this one. And yeah, it wasn't for me. I know that there's a ton of people that love this book though and say that it's super, super feminist. But yeah, I just wanted a little bit more from the story, so I just DNF'd it. Next up is The Grace Year by Kim Leggett. This one is, this is kind of funny because this one was recommended to me from Jan from Jan Agaton, okay? She recommended it to me and was like, it's like The Handmaid's Tale. I think you'll love it if you like The Handmaid's Tale, pick it up. And I was instantly like, okay, and immediately picked it up. And, you know, this is the start of where Jan and I realized we do not have similar reading tastes at all. In fact, we almost have polar opposite reading tastes, where she will like love a book and give it 5 stars, and then I will hate it and get mad at it and DNF it, and vice versa. Like, books that I absolutely love, she hates. So there's only like a handful of books that we completely agree on. A Dowry of Blood being one of them. We both gave that 5 stars. But yeah, this one was Jan recommended, and she loved it, and Hannah hated it. I got over 150 pages into this one, and yes, it is very Handmaid's Tale-esque. It has that same like women oppression, and they're starting to try to rebel, but it's also got like this layer of Lord of the Flies over it, and I don't know, these girls, it was YA, they just like fought. And it was really annoying, and I really didn't care about anything. Like, I liked the feminist aspect to it and like the Handmaid's Tale type story, but I did not care for this one, and I was getting really annoyed, especially by the like girl hate between like these young girls. I'm sure that the book has like character growth like by the end, but I just didn't want to continue it. Oh, this next one. Okay. This is... Jan, if you're watching, you know exactly what book this is, because not only did I DNF it, I actively hate this book. Like, I could rant for so long about this book. I'm gonna rant a little bit, but yeah, so this is Moonshot by Alessandra Torre. And I got like 200 pages into this book and literally threw the book. I was so mad at it. It's so annoying and stupid. Yeah, I freaking hated this book. It was supposed to be like a cutesy sports romance between the coach's daughter and a baseball player. And every like 5 chapters or so, it would throw in this like random paragraph about this like murder mystery that's going on, and it felt really, really weird. The whole thing was really, really weird, and honestly, I like read reviews that spoiled it after I had already decided to DNF it at 200 pages, and I was like, oh my god, why would I ever want to read that? Yeah, and I was so excited about that one because I was in the mood for a sports romance, and this one was just, it was like trying to be a murder mystery with a romance twist, and I am not about that. I actually hated it. I hated it. I don't normally rate my DNFs because I didn't actually finish it, so I don't want to give it a rating, but this one I would rate 1 star. 1 star. I almost never give out 1-star ratings, if ever. But this book, yeah, 1 star. I hated it so much. I remember being in Half Price Books and being like, Jan, I need to freaking rant about this. Please let me tell you about it and spoil it for you because I just need to talk to somebody about it. And she was like, do it, go for it, go off. And I did. I typed so much into my Instagram message that it cut me off. Like, I had to send it in separate messages. That's how long of a message of a rant it was. So yeah, I for sure DNF'd that one, and I'm still annoyed to this day about that book. Like, thinking about it makes me want to, like, rip the book in half. Yeah, hated it. Okay, so moving on. So next up is another sports romance that unfortunately I did not enjoy, and that is Hands Down by Mariana Zapata. This is a kind of spin-off book to The Wall of Winnipeg in Me by Mariana Zapata, which I absolutely loved. The Wall of Winnipeg in Me. I think I gave it 5 stars or 4.5 stars or something like that. I loved it. One of the side characters in that book, Zach, Big Texas, gets his own book. And I loved Zach in The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. So I, of course, picked up his book right away. And I got over 100 pages into this one. And it was more the story of the girl whose name I don't even remember. But I just didn't like her perspective, I guess, and it felt like Zach's character was different than how he was in The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and I just was not vibing with it. I couldn't continue on, and those books are not short. It's like over 500 pages, and if I'm not hooked in a romance by the first 100 pages, like, it's probably just not going to happen. And I know Caitlin from Kate Literature also felt the same. Like, she loved The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, but was not really feeling Hands Down. I think she finished Hands Down, but she gave it 2 stars. And so I was just like, yeah, it's just not for me, unfortunately. I do love Mariana Zapata's books. I've read several of them, but that one was just not for me. The next one that I DNF'd, I'm kind of sad about because I was really hoping to love it, and that was A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair. That's book 2 in the Touch of Darkness series, which is a Hades and Persephone retelling. And I did not get very far into this one and quickly became annoyed with Persephone. She does so much character growth in the first book, A Touch of Darkness, and I really liked where we were at the end of that one. And then in A Touch of Ruin, it's like she goes like so far back in her character development, like not even to where she was at the beginning of A Touch of Darkness, but like even farther back. She just gets really annoying and, I don't know, childish kind of. And I was so annoyed with her. I was like, what happened to all that character development we went through in the first book? Like, where did that go? It just went out the window. So I think I got like 40 pages into this one, and I just would rather think of A Touch of Darkness as a standalone than go through that, because like we already went through the character development. I don't want to read another book going through it all over again, you know? So that one was a DNF. All right, the next one is Full Tilt by Emma Scott. I have heard so many great things about this book. There's so many people that I follow on Goodreads that gave this book 5 stars. Gabby from Gabby Reads rated it really highly. Steph Bohr rated it really highly as one of her favorite books, which is why I picked it up. And this one, I just didn't get the hype on it. Like, I got like 150 pages into this one before I decided to DNF it, but it's a pretty short book. So I think I was like nearing the halfway point, actually, or at halfway or over halfway. I don't even know. But I think it was just like a lack of character connection for me. Like, I just didn't care what happened to the 2 main characters. Like, you could guess what was going to happen from like the first few pages. You know what's going to happen, but you're here for the journey, you know? And I don't know, I wasn't feeling it. And so again, after I decided to DNF it, I was looking up like bad reviews of it. I don't know, that's something I do. I look up bad reviews to like justify myself, like, yeah, I'm glad I DNF'd that. But I saw a spoilery review like spoiling what happens in the end, and that would have seriously annoyed me if I would have finished it. So I'm glad that I DNF'd this one, and it was just a case of this book is not for me. Then these next two I actually DNF'd right in a row, and I was thinking, you know, am I in like a reading slump and so I'm just DNFing everything? But no, it was just these two books that were not for me. The first one is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This was supposed to be like a very poetic, beautiful, kind of heartbreaking tale about this boy like coming of age in America. His family is Vietnamese, I think. And I just thought it was weird, and I can say that the writing is definitely beautiful, but I just didn't care for the story. Like, I didn't care for the characters enough to see what would happen, and it had like a weird tone to it, and so I was just like, this is just not for me. I'm not going to try to force myself to read something just because it's got like literary merit. So I got about 130 pages into that one before I decided that it just wasn't for me, and I decided to DNF it. And then the next one I still have my copy of. Most of these, if I've DNF'd it, I've unhauled it, but this one I'm keeping because it is a gift. Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This was gifted to me for my birthday from Jan. And as I said before, Jan and I have very, very different reading tastes. And she was convinced, like literally her note on here says, "You'll love this one, I promise. This will break our curse and align our book tastes once and for all." Oh, and it's in all caps too, like the hope that she had in me loving this. I got over 100 pages into this one, 110 pages. So let's see where that was. I was about here. Okay, like a third of the way through it. And I just found Eleanor to be seriously annoying. Like, it's okay to have unlikable characters and annoying characters, but to be in her perspective was frustrating. And I was like, what is even happening here? Like, half the time I felt like nothing was going on, and I was just reading her, like, living her life, like waking up, brushing her teeth, eating breakfast. Like, why do I care to read that? I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I just was annoyed with Eleanor and her, like, narrative in her head. And yeah, I decided to not finish it. This next one was another, like, frustrating one where I got really annoyed with it. Not as annoyed as Moonshot, but definitely more annoyed than my typical DNFing annoyance. And that is Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. I feel like this book and this series is making a resurgence right now. Like, people are either rereading it, like, for nostalgia reasons, and then people are picking it up because, like, it's getting hyped back up. And so many people said that this book, like, stands the test of time, and it's not like reading Twilight. Like, I loved Twilight in high school, but reading it now as an adult, I'm like, it's a bit cringe. But this one apparently stood the test of time, and I had never read it. I missed the train on that one back when vampires were cool the first time, and so I decided to pick it up for Vampathon because obviously vampires, so it was perfect. And everybody was telling me, like, well, not telling me, but, like, everybody was saying that Rose, the main character, was, like, this badass, like, teenage girl, and, you know, she was, like, protecting her best friend because she's a guardian, and her best friend's, like, freaking vampire royalty or whatever. And I got 140 pages into this book, and literally, Rose is not a badass. She is so useless. She has zero skills. The one time she needed to protect her friend, she got her ass kicked in like 10 seconds. She's just so arrogant too, and it's like, for what? For what? You literally have no skills. Like, you can be arrogant if you have something to be arrogant about, but you don't, okay? Why are you so cocky and you have nothing to show for it? Like, she's like bragging to her friends, like, oh yeah, we were off out of the school's protection, and I was protecting whatever her name is, and it's like, okay, but you didn't do anything. I don't know. I just don't get it. And I was so, like, I could tell where it was gonna go. Like, I knew where the romance was gonna go and the things that were happening. I was just like, girl, what are you doing? So yeah, that was a case of DNFing because I was just so seriously annoyed by that book. So those are all of the books that I DNF'd this year. That is 13 books that I started reading and decided they were not for me, or they annoyed me so friggin' much that I just couldn't finish them. So I didn't finish them. But now I have 4 disappointing books that I should have DNF'd, but I forced myself to finish it for various reasons, and I wish I had DNF'd them because I really didn't like them and they were very disappointing. The first one was Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. This is book 2 in the Serpent and Dove series, and I loved Serpent and Dove. Blood and Honey, however, I hated it. I gave it 2 stars because I was able to finish it, but this, like, my annoyance for that book, it's probably more of a 1 star, even though I rarely give those out. I gave it a 2 star because I was able to finish it, right? Like, so it was good enough that I didn't have to DNF it, but I almost wish I did. Because even in the first book, I hate Reed. I hate his character. I hate everything about him. And he's the love interest. Like, why? Why? Lou, the main character, is incredible and amazing, and I love her, and I just wanted it to be from her perspective the entire time. But the second book, Blood and Honey, is mostly from Reed's perspective. Like, I hate him. Why do I want to be in his head? Why do I want to hear his stupid thoughts? Like, I don't. But I wanted to know where the story was going to go, and yeah, I just, you know, whatever. It is what it is. I hate Reed, and I shouldn't have finished the book because it was mostly from his perspective. The next one is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I had really hyped this book up in my head because of Chloe from Books with Chloe. She did a vlog where she read it and, like, basically just was crying on screen, and Caitlin from Kate Literature was, like, had reread it or something, and so she was, like, hyping it up for me, and I was just so excited to read it. And then I read it, and it was one of the most frustrating books that I've ever read because it's the miscommunication trope in romance repeated over and 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 over. It is very frustrating to read, and I don't get the hype around that book. Like, I can see why people like it, but not like it as much as they do. Because I know Jamie from Jamie's Library even said, like, either you get it or you don't. And I definitely fall into the category of I don't get it. I don't get what's beautiful about this. I think that they're just being stupid and miscommunicating. And I hate the miscommunication trope unless there's, like, a good reason for it. And there's literally not in this book. They just miscommunicate because because they are who they are. And yeah, I didn't like it. I read this book for a 24-hour readathon that I did, so I wanted to finish it because, like, I was reading books, like, as many books as I can in 24 hours, and it was the last book that I picked up for that day, so, like, I didn't want to pick up a new book and start all over. I just wanted to get it over with, and yeah, I really didn't like that one. That was another book that I threw out of rage. And then the last disappointing book that I did manage to finish, but probably should have DNF'd, is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This one I buddy read with Ashley from Ashley's Little Library, and this is one that was hyped up majorly for me. I had it as a 5-star prediction, and I love fantasy, and this one, like a standalone fantasy about dragons, like, oh, just sounded right up my alley. And first of all, the first 200 pages were just like a straight info dump of names and places and history that was so confusing, and for what? Like, for what? And yeah, it's like a 800-page book, and so I forced myself to finish it because I was buddy reading it with Ashley, and I was like, dude, if you want to DNF it, please let me know because I want to DNF it too. So I don't want to keep reading this if neither of us is enjoying it. I mean, neither of us did enjoy it, but we still wanted to be like, okay, we accomplished it because we read this, like, huge chunk of a book. So I did end up finishing it, but I did not enjoy most of it, if any of it. There was, like, a couple parts where I was like, this part is good, but, like, the vast majority of it I did not like. So it was very disappointing, especially since I had that as a 5-star prediction and I ended up giving it 2 stars. Like, disappointing for sure. So yeah, that is my list of books that I DNF'd this year, and also a couple books that were just very, very disappointing for me. And I'm just sad. I'm just sad about it that I didn't like those books because I really had high hopes for them. But yeah, those are the books that I decided to quit. Let me know in the comments down below if you DNF'd any of these books or if any of these books that I mentioned were disappointing to you. And let me know what book that you DNF'd or that you read this year that was the most annoying to you. For sure for me, that was Moonshot. I actively hate that book. Yeah. So let me know if you have any super, super strong feelings like that towards a book. I would love to hear it, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!